Hey, welcome to We Have a Plant for That, powered by Rochester Pollinators. One thing I found that is absolutely certain, when you replace a lawn with a native plant, you aren't just gardening, you're healing the planet by giving a portion of your yard back to nature. I'm Marilyn Trent, and back in 2019, when I founded the Rochester Pollinators to save the monarch butterfly, what I found along the way was an accidental tapestry of hope. Hundreds of stories of joy and transformation that changed my life and so many others.
If you care about nature, but you're not knowing where to start, we've made this podcast for you.
And if you're already a native plant enthusiast, looking for expert insights and community, you found your home.
And other homes too, Amber, who'd like to expand upon that.
And if you're already a native plant enthusiast or know nothing about native plants and are looking for expert insights and community, you found your home. Our mission is to make everyone a gardener. No one has a black thumb here.
Well, good job, Amber. Welcome all. This is not about rigid rules or guilt. It's about the small acts that add up, from a single pot on a balcony to planting your own pollinator garden. Or many people come and they want a butterfly garden. It's one and the same. If you want to change local and state policy on encouraging the protection of native plants and pollinator insects, this is the place to be too. I'm joined by my friends and colleagues and fellow founders of Rochester Pollinators, Stephanie Burdo Smith, board chair, and Amber Quesenberry, vice chair. We started this podcast because the most meaningful conversations about our pollinators and our ecosystems don't happen in lecture halls. They happen between people sharing their ideas and their stories.
You can expect real stories, conversations, practical advice, learning a little bit more about our pollinators, and some laughter. Like, what do I do with those aphids in my yard?
And the reminder that what you're already doing matters. Whether you have a backyard, a public park, or a single porch, please join us, because whatever the challenge, we truly believe
We
have
have
a
a plan for
that.
that. Okay. Just an idea I had in 2019 to save the monarch butterfly when I learned that it was in decline by up to 90%. And I couldn't believe that we were losing our monarch butterfly. And I really didn't know about insects and butterflies very much from that initial eye-opening experience, that there's lots of plants that nature needs in our ecosystem, and they're native plants. They're native to each region across the world. And basically, nature already knows how to heal itself.
I think monarchs are a good gateway bug for a lot of people. But I remember the year that we discovered the power of nature was when we decided to not control what was coming up in our yard and just see what came up. And what came up was common milkweed. And I don't think at the time there were like the ID apps or anything yet. I might have pulled out a book.
Oh no, really? Like a real book?
Like a real book, and was like, what is this? Because common milkweed is impressive as it's coming up. And then by the time it was a foot tall, it was loaded in tiny caterpillars. And my kids and I were just shocked. Like, this has been happening this whole time. And that was our introduction into native plants, native insects, that whole thing. I mean, up until then, I feel like we were just gardening the way that we were taught to garden. Tend to your lawn, and you go to the garden center and you plant what is appealing to you, and figuring out, like, just taking a lot of steps back from that and figuring out, like, actually there's more that we can be doing there. It's not about our aesthetic. For my kids and I, it became more about, like, who else can we discover here?
Somebody contacted me through, was it maybe Facebook or something, or a class that you worked out in? I don't know, but they said somebody is trying to find you.
Yes, that was, I used to do bar fitness, and there was Amanda was there, and she is the one who was, I think that you would really like this. Because I was the girl, if there was an insect in the studio, they would tell me and I would take it outside. So
Oh my
everyone knew
gosh. Oh,
I
you're
was
one of
a little
those. So
bit.
am I. It's sometimes it's kind of embarrassing. They'll look at me and like, she'll take care of it.
I embraced it. I was just like, hey, I'm the spider girl. That's fine. I'll do it. Because, yeah, they deserve to live. So
Yeah,
put them outside.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. It's
My
definitely.
journey kind of started with insects also. I remember when I was a kid, my grandpa had had surgery, and so he really couldn't play much with me outside. And I was pretty little, but something he could do was sit on the chair. And he had all these raspberry bushes, I remember, in his backyard. But he had these stepping stones. And so we would pick up the stepping stones and we would look underneath the stepping stones to see what we could find. And another thing that I always remember, they had a lilac bush. Those were the two things that I remember that, was very significant in my childhood and the time I spent with my grandpa. So it was just super fun memories. I loved playing with the worms and the roly-polies and anything else that I could find. So as I got older, I also wasn't the kid just you guys talked about who was spider. I was, oh, let's help it. Let's
Mhm.
release it back outside. So I wanted that same sort of feeling for my kids too, because I wanted my three not to be afraid of bugs, to embrace them, to get down on the ground and to study them and to look at them. And having my two first native plants were rose milkweed and also cardinal flower. And I loved cardinal flower because of the bright red color that it had. It was just so pretty. And just as it bloomed, it just was amazing. And the first time we saw a hummingbird come and visit it was just so cool. We ran inside, we had to get the camera, had to record it, had to take all the pictures. And so every year I wait for it to bloom so I could see those hummingbirds coming back to it. And then my children just love swamp milkweed, love looking for those eggs, love trying to find those caterpillars hidden along the leaves and seeing bite marks and everything on the leaves. It just brings them such joy. That's how my journey evolved, came full circle with starting out as a bug lover and the one who was lifting up bricks to my children doing the same thing in my yard.
Parents, let your kids flip over the bricks. Don't get mad at them.
Yes.
the, the whole world's underneath there.
Absolutely.
We gotta be vocal about it though, because
Oh.
I feel like I've had a lot of friends who have rethought, should I kill this bug? Based on just kind of what they see here and what what I've been able to see. Do you ever think about why you feel you need to kill that spider? Like what? There's that funny meme that spider might have thought that you were roommates this whole time, and then you just
Killed your roommate?
yeah,
Well,
and
I mean, we have 40% decline in our
it's
pollinator, all
terrible.
of our insects. Yes. So this is part of it. We have a war. There is a war on our insect world from everywhere from the pesticides, herbicides, and insecticides to basically literally people just killing them.
Yeah.
And not understanding their value to the ecosystem, which gets me to the point when we were talking about an easy point of entry for a new gardener that just happens across our podcast. And we were talking about how easy it was to grow these plants as opposed to when you've tried to grow these annuals and other plants. They're not adapted to a region's ecosystem.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've definitely had some fails in my yard before I found native plants. I'd try these things and I'd go to the garden center and be like, oh, this looks pretty. And so I put it
Mhm.
in my yard. I check the label and see just to make sure I was sun, parts on, shade, making sure I was trying my best to put it in a spot that it likes. But some years we had a lot of water. Some years we didn't have a lot of water. Sometimes we were out of town. Sometimes they accidentally forgot that said plant was there and needed a little bit of water. So then when I found my native plants and started putting them in, they just did amazing. They're like, hey, you don't have to worry about me. I'm just gonna be here. Just give me my space, and I'm gonna continue to grow, and I'm gonna do my thing. You do your thing, and we'll just live in harmony together.
Yeah. No, I mean, and you know what you were saying, Amber, you don't have to be a master gardener.
No, you do not.
Although I'm going to have to tell a little secret. I think both of you are master gardeners now, but you only did that. You could tell us why.
You do not need to be a master gardener. In fact, you don't really need to know much about anything except, trust your instincts and hope for the best. Usually these plants thrive.
Yeah, it's just some standard information of does
Yeah.
it need wet soil or dry sandy or sun, full sun, partial sun. And I thought it was you, Amber, that had said, or someone, maybe Stephanie as well, that said that even if it's saying full sun or partial shade, they don't grow as tall in different types of sun situations or lack of sun, that they can still grow.
If you're observing, and this happens over time, right? Nobody does this their first go. If you're observing how a plant grows, it's like in my case, I have blue lobelia in different parts of the yard. Some places it grows really, really tall and beautiful, and some places it's shorter. Both produce blooms, but the ones in the shade are not as tall. And that's just a product of its environment. But give it a shot, I think, is what I'm always willing to do. And then be flexible. Maybe you're gonna have to get your shovel out and move it to someplace happier if you can. Some are tricky to move, but I guess not taking yourself too seriously or personally, right? Yeah.
Always amazed by rose milkweed, the spaces that it'll just start growing its seedling in, something like a crack in the cement, and it'll just grow this little seedling, and it just always makes me smile because you know what? These seeds, they know what they're doing. It might have not been the most ideal situation, but this little seedlings was very determined. And it's always also amazing to me, and the monarch moms will lay their egg on those tiny seedlings.
Yeah.
I tell people that all the time. Like, don't discredit. If we're giving you this little tiny plant, don't discredit that the monarch mom will find this plant and she will put an egg on there because she wants to have her offspring be successful, have a successful start with those baby leaves to munch on.
Yeah. So Stephanie, how did you find me first? And then somehow and then it was Amber, and then we became the three what do you call us? Musketeers?
Yeah.
Troublemakers.
Native tears.
Yes. So I actually found you, Marilyn, at the Earth Day Festival in downtown Rochester. Downtown Rochester used to have an Earth Day Festival. I'm like, you're part of Rochester Pollinators? Like, you have to tell me more. And then we became plant besties.
Yes, we did. Yes, we did.
That's how it started. And so it was just, we started talking, and I also was so bummed about not seeing monarchs in my backyard. This sounds a little bit funny, but I feel that there are a number of times that we've been together since 2019 that I'll be doing something like planting something in my garden, and a monarch will come and flutter right by and will get like abnormally close to me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I think they're saying thank you.
Yeah.
I think they're like, thank you. I know that you're trying to really hard to plant the plants that I need. So thank you.
No, I would agree.
Yeah, it's magical.
Yes, super magical.
So
But before that, actually, I was going to say before I met you, I actually also had learned a lot at the Rochester Hills Public Library about native plants. They do all kinds of programming throughout the year. And so one of their programming was they had a native plant landscaper. And we are going to be updating our landscaping. You know what? I really want to go to the seminar. And so I went and fell more in love with native plants. And and that also is part of my journey and kind of a full circle journey because the library opened my eyes to additional native plants by having the speaker. And then later on, one of my first projects with Rochester Pollinators, my big project, was being able to plant a native plant garden at the west entrance.
Oh, yeah, you've had that there for a while. And boy, was I thankful because I kept taking on more projects thinking, who can help me do this? We have over maybe 276 volunteers that have joined us. And that's what made me want to do this podcast more is because we also have over 2,500 newsletter subscribers, and we have sold and given away more exponentially more plants than we did in 2019 to now 2000. We're getting into 2026, but last year we doubled and tripled what we sold from the spring and the fall. Absolutely, it's been amazing. And I get the most wonderful emails in my inbox at pollinators@trentcreative.com with stories and photos and questions and thank yous. I've had people tell me it's brought joy back to their life. I had a woman in her 80s whose daughter told me that her mother hadn't seen monarchs for a long, long time. And now, because she planted the milkweed that we provided her, that she sees it. And now she looks out her window and she said, it just brought joy back to my life. So that's what we want to do is bring joy, meaning to people's lives as we restore the ecosystem one yard at a time. I feel good about what we're going to do with this podcast. We're going to talk to people at small scale plantings, but also people who are doing it at a large scale, if they're planting meadows or they're experts at this at any level, of the native plant nurseries or landscapers. I'm finding all sorts of people who have very interesting and informational stories to tell. And I wanted to bring it all into one place.
It's important to have community like
Yeah.
this.
Yeah, I just want people to maybe have a little respite and like maybe they want to step back from their day to day or step back from maybe doom scrolling, as they say, or just scrolling. And we think, and many others do, that this is the hope that each one of us can do something about because there's so much out of our control. I don't know if you guys have ever done the little test of what's in your control and what isn't. You just write that list.
Yeah.
And one of them's really, really short.
Right.
I think you have to just start with you and what fills your bucket. And I think this is something that why it's become so important to us is because it fills our bucket. Like we're seeing the gratification, we're going in our yards, we're seeing the insects that the plants are attracting. We're seeing the seedlings grow. We're seeing holes in our leaves. So we know that they're being used. And so I feel like this is what fills our buckets.
Well, what we found is that we're not alone. We're not navel gazing. And then you find there's also birds. I was excited about the birds were eating the seed heads of my cup plant and my green coneflower. And in the winter, there was a small bird that was eating our seeds outside our window with our green coneflower. And my husband was like, "Whoa, what is that?" And he's getting really excited because that's the natural bird feeder, right?
Yeah.
And then the cup plant, the goldfinches just could swoop in like airplanes, little jet airplanes, and just swooping in, and they'd eat the cup plant.
Like, especially if you put up a bluebird box and then like they check it out, but they never inhabit it. And in our case, it took us literally planting hundreds of native plants over 5 years before we actually saw them use the box. They like surveyed the area and we're like, okay, this will do. There's enough proximity to plants that we can feed these babies. So we finally had success last summer, but it took a minute.
Oh, that's interesting to note. Yes, because going back to the protein, Doug
Yeah.
Tallamy had called those caterpillars thin-skinned sausages because they have more protein than beef. Because of we also can help save our birds as well with native plants, and that's where we have a plant for that.
Yeah.
Do root system to soak up water. If you're having spongy lawns, and actually flooding problems, plant a rain garden. We have a plant for that. So what words of wisdom would you leave everyone with, guys? Because we're going to have to take this podcast on the road and get in our sidecar.
Well, I think I think you got to give your words of wisdom to everybody, but then you also have to make sure everyone knows what your plant for that is.
You go, Amber. You seem to have covered a lot with all those plants.
So I get accused of, this is the same case with my children. They all know they're my favorite. I tell them that daily. And so that is the case, the same case for the native plants in my yard. They're all my favorite. They're all spectacular. They're all serving a different purpose. They're all showing up for each other. Some of my favorite ways to view them is how they grow in combination. It's just a different way of thinking about being a gardener. It's not really about control and what you're going to put here and what's going to look good there. It's more about just watching it evolve and seeing what happens and reaping the fruits of your initial labor, which is either planting the seed or putting the plant in the ground. So I could never pick a favorite. They're all my favorite.
Aww. Well, we always have people ask Amber. It's because you love them all and you know a lot about native plants.
But yeah, most of our front lawn, and every year we cut away more.
Yeah, we'll have to come out and you can share that with us.
It's fun. It's really fun to watch it evolve.
Marilyn, what's your plant for that? And what is your closing advice for?
Well, my plant for that is near and dear to my heart, was the one that opened my eyes to a world I did not know exist. I've always cared about the environment. I date myself with the Indian that had a tear running down its cheek in advertising. Maybe that's why I got into communication and advertising when it was, I think it was in the 60s or early 70s. They had the commercial with the Indian with a tear running down his cheek about the people throwing trash out their windows of their car and not even caring about the environment. And so I was more into recycling and pollution and chemicals.
There are so many native bees that use our stems. So I thought that was very fascinating too. Leave your stems, leave your leaves. They all have a purpose. There's not a lot of waste in nature. Nature takes care of itself. Amber had said there's some years where your native plants will look a little bit different. And they're just going based on cues of nature. This is a year where it's a little bit wetter, so I might have more blooms. This is a year it's a little drier. I might not have as many blooms. And so it's kind of neat to see how it evolves and how each season is a little bit different for your garden. And so that's fun too. It's not necessarily the same look every time. It might be the same plants, but it's just so different each time.
Thank you. I agree with all of this. And I also like the fact that to me, they're like my friends. They come up every year and it's like a rhythm. They come up around at the same time of year as well. So you become to be part of the rhythm of nature. And instead of going to the store and buying a begonia and putting in the soil, these native plants bloom at different times, and it's a wonderful experience. So, what can our listeners expect as we go into our next episode? We just want to dig into practical ideas and real experience and hopeful stories and how it's changed anyone's lives from the first plant that they planted or their little small garden plot to experts that can teach us things about bees and butterflies that we didn't know, and maybe even beavers. And we are not looking for perfectionism, we're not asking for anyone but to, hey, give us a listen. And if you like what we have to say and you learn something, then I hope you press play for our next episode. And I hope you enjoyed this. So I think that's it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Your native plants.
Yep. We'll be back.
Just like your native plants.
That's right. We'll just keep coming back no matter what.
We'll probably bring friends.
Thanks so much for listening to We Have a Plant for That. Be sure to join us again in 2 weeks for our next episode, where we'll continue exploring how native plants can transform your garden and support our local pollinators. Until then, keep growing and thriving.